if you watch, there's the other approach, which is we call it the Gary Vaynerchuk approach, which is have you
a bunch of Gary Vaynerchuk stuff. Yeah,
and I love Gary. Like
Yeah, he's
I
great.
wouldn't be here if it wasn't for stuff that Gary Vaynerchuk says. And then I read his quotes, and it's like every time you fall down, you need to get back up. The only thing that matters is that you try harder. And I'm like, bro, if I said shit like this, no one would care. But like Gary can say stuff like that. And I'm like, I understand why he's doing it. And maybe for people who are white belts, that's helpful. But for some of us, we have to kick someone's ass. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And that is like when I listen to Tony Robbins, I feel the kind of the same way. It's just like this overgeneralization, platitudes, explanation on self-help. It's not that you're wrong. For some people who are in a very dark place, it's very helpful. It just would not be helpful for me because I'm already running an 8-figure business. What I need though is someone to like directly come in here, tell me what I'm doing wrong, and then explain it. So in your situation, when you were talking about helping people, what's interesting, you've operated more than 4 or 5 very successful businesses. So for you, you were just like, I didn't understand the point of the coaching because I would just do things. So for you, the take action skill set was already ingrained in you. Just like for me, public speaking, I've never had a problem with it. And for you, the taking action skill set was already, so because you're so unaware of it, you're so unaware that you have it, you're actually unaware that other people don't. And then when you saw it firsthand, it was incredible. For me, when I watch Wes, like we were talking about this last night, I understand Wes because I'm surrounded by guys in my program, this bottom third of men who have no success with women at all, who don't give themselves permission. It's so common that this group of men that suffer so badly, all they care about is when they go home for Thanksgiving, their fat aunt who's been divorced 3 times, who's telling them dating advice. Like they listen to the advice of these people who have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to business or dating. And they're completely worship at the altar of worthless people and their worthless opinions. And so when I look at Wes, I'm like, oh, these people can't give themselves permission. And this guy gives himself too much permission. Oh, it makes sense now. Now I see the other side of it.
Isn't it funny how most people care about the advice of people that they shouldn't be taking the advice from? Business, money, relationships. It's like the person that you care the most about what they think is the least qualified to actually give you the advice on that thing, right? Whether it's any of those things.
You just started dating a girl. This is the most common one. You just started dating a girl. You guys are in a sexual relationship. She's very much into you. And then she starts telling you that she doesn't like the fact that you're friends with other women because it hurts your business. And you're like, wait a second, hold on now, but you're dating me. This doesn't make sense. This is one of the common things we talk about is like women will give terrible advice to men. It's not because they mean to give terrible advice to men. It's because when women give advice to men, they're giving advice to the men. They're giving advice as if they're talking about a man they're already attracted to. And often they'll say things like, for instance, mate choice copying in humans. This is a concept where women choose men that other women find attractive. I've had women debate me on this because it feels like that's not good. And it's like, well, here's a study from Texas Christian University. Here's another study from the Royal Society showing indefatigably that men, when they take photos with attractive women, women see them as being more intelligent, more ambitious, more physically attractive, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to go out with a player. And then I stop and say, hey, have you ever dated a player before? And we're like, yeah. I was like, okay, so you're complaining about men you've slept with before, right? And then I back up and I'm like, what you're hearing me do is you think that when I give this advice to men, hold your own boundaries, these are different ways to be attractive. You think I'm talking about that dude who had sex with you and never called you back. I'm not talking to him. I'm talking to this guy over here who can't get your attention at all. He can't get 6 matches out of 1,000 right swipes. He has no women are paying any attention to him. He's the one I'm talking to. The problem is you can't conceptualize of this because you don't even see him as a human being. And they've done studies on this, whereas like women, when these men are not that attractive, they don't even see them. They don't remember anything about these guys, their features or characteristics at all. And so what's happened is because I'm trying to help this bottom third of men, women sometimes will hear my content and they just keep thinking about the guy who hurt them. And they keep thinking, well, Michael's talking, he's giving this toxic advice to the guy who already hurt me. I'm not. I'm giving the advice to the guy you put in the friend zone and you forgot about him. And you told your friends, oh, he's going to be such a great partner for someone someday. You just ruined his chances. Like you destroyed his self-confidence. I'm here to help him. He needs my help. That guy that you put in the friend zone, he does need a lot of hot female friends who introduce him to other women, regardless of whether or not you think it's toxic. It's true because it works. And so what you just said before, these people giving advice, people will give advice based on what they, I'm trying to think of the best way to example. We don't complain about things that don't affect us. Whenever I hear women say, I don't like guys who are players, that usually tells me that's because one of them has affected you sometime in your life.
Of course.
My ex-girlfriend, it was so funny. She lives here in Houston. And she would say things like, I think it's so dumb that you have all those pictures with all those hot girls. And then I would just look at her and I'm like, but you're dating me. Like, just, hello? But you're complaining because it hurts comfort in our relationship, but not because it makes me less attractive. And so it's one of these things where you have to be very careful with self-reporting. Even in psychological studies, you need to pay more attention to what people do and not what they say. And another thing that I've said before.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
In the business world and in any world.
I talked with Candace last night. I was like, the number one piece of advice I give for women when it comes to dating is if you just pay attention to a man's actions, I'm not saying don't believe his words. I'm saying remove them from the context completely. If you do that, you'll have a complete and total understanding of what it is that you're looking at. When you look at a man, and it's like when you have a business partner and it's like, hey, I'm going to pay you on Tuesday, and he doesn't pay you on Tuesday, it doesn't matter the words that come next. The words that come next don't matter. The only thing that matters is that he didn't pay you on Tuesday. When you start looking at, this is how I figured out, I had a business partner who was robbing me, and it was like one of these things where I'd been friends with him for so long. I couldn't accept what was going on. And then when I just took the words out and only paid attention to his actions, it became very clear what was going on. And when I go back and I state it to other people with no words, it's like, oh, it's obvious. He was robbing you from the whole time. And so when you do that, especially with men, because we're like bear traps, we're very easy to understand, like emotionally. When you do that, I'm dating this guy, but he doesn't really want to have sex with me that much. And she's like have you ever heard a female friend say this to you? Yeah, but he doesn't want to have sex that much. And I'm like, he's not that into you. Like, that's incredible. Like, what do you mean he doesn't want to have sex that much? He's a man though. That doesn't make any sense. Like, unless he got kicked in the nuts by a donkey, it's hypogonadism. That doesn't make any sense. There's definitely something else going on, but she wants to believe that he's just stressed out from work. That's why he didn't call me last night. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, they have to make these excuses for why this man that they're with is not giving them what they want. And the thing is that they watch The View and they watch all these other shows. No, just pay attention to his actions. And just dispassionately decide.
That's actually a good point for any area of life.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because well, like you said, business partnership, friend, not girlfriend, just a regular friend or in a relationship. Or it's a lot of those guys that you're helping, like you said, they go back to Thanksgiving dinner, their aunt or their mom or somebody's like, you need to do this and you need to do this. And you're listening to them, but they've never done what you're trying to do. Yes. And then you're taking all your advice and putting all your eggs like, okay, well, she's telling me not to do it. I probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But they're not qualified to give you that correct information.
Well, especially not today, especially if you have a family member who's like, say, 40 or 50 years older than you and is giving you advice about dating that is pre-social media. They truly don't understand what they're saying. And the other problem is the concept of, and this is, my mother's just as guilty as this as anyone, is the idea that you need to do this to get the good girl and do this to get the bad girl. And if you are a man and you have any experience with dating, this just isn't true. Like when I talk to guys who are like very experienced with dating, I'm talking about male strippers, VIP hosts, guys that have been with like tons and tons of girls. And they'll tell you all the time, it's like, I'm dating girls who are like have a master's degree. I've been with one guy in their whole life, like really good women. And the reason why good women and bad women are both dating these guys is because attraction triggers in men are attractive to women, not good women and bad women. This is one of the biggest things. I have to like literally kick this out of my clients. Is I'll have clients that come from very structured backgrounds. Sometimes they're German or Indian or Asian backgrounds. And in their belief system, it's like you do this to get a good girl. You go get the master's degree, you go to this school, and then you will be awarded a good woman because of that. And I try to explain to them, I was like, your good woman would date me before you in 2 seconds. Your good woman. It's like, no, Michael comes off like a player. I'm like, your good woman would go out with me before you in 2 seconds because I understand attraction triggers and you just think you're earning vagina. And it doesn't work like that with women. And so because of that, there's this massive misunderstanding. And a lot of times it's these people's mothers who are perpetuating this nonsense. It's just not the case. Again, remember, everyone wanted Megan Fox and she chose Machine Gun Kelly. Machine Gun Kelly is a despot who would have orgies after his shows frequently with hundreds of women. And Megan Fox, who could have had anyone in the world, chose him because it's not that she chose him because he's the bad boy. She chose him because he had passively or actively understood concepts in attraction that made him attractive to the opposite sex. And it's hard for guys to grasp this. They think, no, if I go to a good school, then I'll get a good girl. If I meet the girl in church, then I'll get a good girl. It's like, no, you go to church nowadays and you're going to meet women who have, like, they had a past life as a sex worker. They've now come into the church and they've decided, I'm going to get absolution from God. They do that. And now you have these young singles groups inside of churches now, like the Wednesday night young singles group. And you're putting together a woman who's incredibly experienced. Her technology is very, very advanced, against a guy who actually followed the Bible and maintained his virginity until he's 26 years old. Do you understand what happens when you take a girl who's like an OnlyFans model who's converted to Christianity and line her up with a guy who's 24 years old and he's a virgin? He's going to get destroyed by her. That's what's going to happen. And that's what we see a lot of time with the church. So again, the idea was, if I do the good guy things, I get the good girl. That is just not true. If you're attractive to women in general, you get whatever girl you want, and you find that these things are way easier. And the numbers bear this out. You have a bottom third of men that have 0 or 1 sexual partners in like 3 years, and you have the top 5% of men that have 50 sexual partners. The top 1% have 150. Like, this is not like the scale is like this. It's insane, and the scale is not the same for women. It isn't. The top 1% of women, I think it's 35 sexual partners. The top 5% of women, it's 16 sexual partners. The number of women who go without sex is incredibly low in comparison to men. So we just see this happen over and over again. And so it's one of the hardest things I have to beat out of my clients. That one, and then the other part of, I want to get into like a traditional dating, courting relationship with a woman. And I'm like, she needs to earn that before you do that. You don't need to just jump into that.